So, hi, my name's Ethan Martin. I'm a cybersecurity engineer here at Dynics. And as Jeff just mentioned, we have some new features coming for a new 2.5.2 release of the ICS360.Defender. And I'm going to be demoing those for you today. One of those will be the user rules. So first, kind of a little scenario here. Here's my laptop. We have this WAN network and an ICS360.Defender, and I want access down to the devices below this ICS360.Defender. As it stands right now, so I pre-set up before this for the demo, I pre-set up a VPN server. I'm currently logged in. As it stands right now, I can ping that device down below the ICS360.Defender, but if I want to try to SSH to configure anything on it, I'm blocked. So, to implement our user rules here, oh goodness, I'm going to go to the new page here in 2.5.2 called Template Rules. It's right below Schedules. And here you have your templates and your rules. Templates are basically just kind of a form, an object to link rules to users. So you have to start off by creating one of those. And we'll say Sandalwood remote access. And we have no rules, so no rules are currently in this template, but we'll press save here. And then right next to templates, we'll go to rules. Now, for any of you who have seen the ICS360.Defender rules page, this looks extremely familiar. It's basically the same page. You have your interfaces, and here you can allow rules or block rules, whatever you want, but these are applied to users, not the general defender. So if we want to allow SSH down onto that device over a VPN connection, I'm going to add a rule here on the VPN interface that I have created. I'm going to make sure it is over port 22, which is SSH. I'm going to save this rule. And then from here, I will go back to templates. I'm going to minimize this. There we go. I go into my templates here, and the rule shows up right here. These parentheses right here, I forgot to add a description. Normally when you add a description to a rule, like you should, it'll show up saying, allow SSH for remote users. So this rule is in the template, and I press save. So now what we have to do is we have to now link this template with a user. So like you would go to manage any users, you come to user manage here on the Defender, and Kevin is the one who is going to be doing the configuration. So we were going to his settings. Down at the bottom here, there's this new rule template section. Here it's going to highlight the template that you want to apply and move it to the applied list. And you press save. So with that, I will disconnect my VPN. And now I will reconnect with the new user rules applied. It's connecting. All right, so now I'm connected. And here you can see I can still ping. And now I should also be able to SSH. Yeah. So now, as Kevin, I can go in, and not only can I see the device down below it, I can now access it and do any configuring I want to it. It's important to note, so if you come to the normal rules page here, and you come over here to the OpenVPN interface, there is a block rule right here, and that was what was blocking our traffic originally. But when we added our user template and created our user rules, that sort of stacks on top of these firewall rules. So traffic will hit user rules that are applied first before it hits these normal kind of base defender rules, and it's important to remember that. So the next feature that I'm going to show you that Jeff talked about a lot is WireGuard. So,
question.
Yes.
So did you have to log out and then the rules are applied to the next time that user logged in, but since you were kind of the user and admin, that's why that worked that way?
Yes, you have to log. So if you make if you make changes to user rules or you apply user rules, if someone has a connection going on, those do not get applied automatically until states reset. Just to do that here, I logged out and then logged back in to get the applied rules that I had.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
Can you have multiple templates?
Yes, you can. You can have multiple templates applied to multiple users, yeah. That's no problem. So next I'll be showing you how to set up a WireGuard connection. So very similar to the first problem, I'm gonna first just do a normal WireGuard tunnel with my laptop as the client, and I'm gonna be performing the same thing that you would normally do with an OpenVPN server, but I'll be using WireGuard and show you how to configure it that way. So first I will disconnect from the VPN server I have. And then I will come here to the WireGuard section underneath VPNs here in the Defender. And like Jeff was saying, you have tunnels and you have peers. Think of these as basically kind of very similar to servers and clients. So first thing we gotta do is we're gonna have to configure a WireGuard tunnel. So it's pretty simple. You make sure that the tunnel is enabled. You'll add a description, something like remote access. You don't have to add a description, but it's just good practice. The default port for WireGuard is 51820. You can change it to whatever you want, but I'm just leaving it as default for now. You'll have these set of keys. You're gonna want to make sure you generate those. And then you're gonna want to create your kind of tunnel subnet IP address here. So I'm gonna go with 10.0.2.1. Make it a /24, and we're going to press save.
Security note, don't save your credentials for things, please.
Yeah. Do not. Yep. So now that this tunnel is created, we're gonna have to go to our interfaces, and we're gonna need to create the interface itself here on the Defender. It's very simple. You'll press add right here. And now we have our new interface. Before leaving this, make sure you press save to save this. So from here, now we have to configure our interface that we just created. You can do that by just clicking on the name of this interface. We're gonna wanna make sure we enable it and name it something. I'll just name it WG for WireGuard. And now you're gonna wanna set it as a static IP address, and you're gonna wanna make sure you set it as the same IP address that you had previously set in the tunnel when you were creating it. So I'll make sure it's 10.0.2.1 on a /24. Press save. Now your interface is created. And make sure you apply those changes. Next thing we're gonna do is we are going to make sure that traffic can pass. So on our newly created interface, we're going to go over here. And for the sake of the demo, I don't recommend doing this, but for the sake of the demo, just to have a big old allow all any traffic rule. Make things nice and easy.
You've never found out.
And we will apply those changes. So now, with our tunnel configured, we can go back over the VPN, and now we have to configure the clients, or what WireGuard calls peers. So here on my laptop, I installed the WireGuard client service, ahead of time before this demo. And here is the config I'll be using. So this is what the WireGuard client side will look like. It'll generate a public key for you, and it'll generate your own private key. These are important. You can fill in your own address, because I know that I'm going to be, using this subnet 10.0.2.0/24. I just made myself 10, and I filled in some random DNS numbers here. And then now what we have to do is basically connect these two via the peers. So I need to add a peer here in the ICS Defender for my laptop. In this page here, you'll have a tunnel, because you have multiple tunnels. Make sure you assign the right one that you want to use. And now we have to enter a public key. So the public key you can grab is here on the WireGuard client side. You can just copy and paste this right in. And then you need to add an allowed kind of subnet for the connection. And what you're going to want to allow is the tunnel network. And make sure that is a /24. And I will save that peer. I will apply those changes. Now, similarly, I have to do the same thing to the WireGuard client here on my laptop, where I am going to need, so I already filled out, kind of the IP address I'm going to be connecting on, the allowed IPs, and then now I need the public key here from the ICS Defender WireGuard tunnel. So you come into here, makes it really easy. You press copy, and all I have to do is paste it in right here, press save, and now if I activate my tunnel, I have a connection going. I should be able to see, similar to the OpenVPN, I should be able to see the device down below the Defender. So now, like I had in that, using the OpenVPN server, using WireGuard instead, I have virtually done the exact same thing, except using a WireGuard tunnel. Now, another thing you can do, kind of the hive mind that Jeff was relating to, I only have 2 ICS Defenders here to show it, but you can do site to site. So a WireGuard connection with the shared tunnel between 2 ICS Defenders. I have another ICS Defender VM here, and I already configured the WireGuard tunnel on this, so I'm not going to show you how to do that again, but you will get to see me set up the peers. It's a little bit different when you're setting it up for a site to site because the IPs are not dynamic. It is kind of it's just static because it's looking at the same place. So when you're adding a peer on one of the Defenders, similar process. Make sure you select the right interface.
Can you zoom in, please?
Yep. Make sure you're selecting the right tunnel interface. Then you're gonna need the public key from this Defender. So I come back over here, copy this, paste the public key. Now, here's what I was saying about dynamic endpoints. When you're just working with the client, it's very simple. You can just leave this checked because the laptop is reaching out and it knows where to go. Because these are 2 static site-to-site tunnel, you need to specify what endpoint, where they're going to be reaching to, basically IP address. So they're going to be connecting here on the WAN, which I know the other ICS Defender's IP address is this, and its port is the basic default port. Now, same thing we do with the client on my laptop. We need to make sure we have the allowed tunnel traffic. But I'm also going to want the 2 private subnets of each Defender to talk through the tunnel and talk to each other. So I need to allow the opposite Defender's private IP subnet. And now I will save this, and that peer is configured. And I will simply do the exact same thing, except over on this Defender. So I come over here to peers, I'll create a peer, assign it the correct interface, point it at the correct IP address, excuse me. I need the public key from this Defender. This VM's a little slow. All right, there we go. So I go into the tunnel here. I will grab its public address, public key, paste it into here, and then same I've been doing to all the other clients. You have to add the allowed IP list. So I want the tunnel subnet, and I also want to allow IP traffic from the other Defender's private subnet. Now I press save. I apply these changes. Give it a second. This one Defender's being really slow. I think it is applied. Well, we can see if it's applied by testing to see if my device. So now we have this, and now my devices underneath each Defender should be able to talk through the WireGuard tunnel and talk to each other. So, oh. I am 192.168.11.10, and I should be able to ping across the tunnel to 192.168.10.10. And there we go. So it's fast, it's very simple, it's an easy way to set up a site-to-site or any client VPN connections that you want. And there it is. Any questions on WireGuard?
Yeah, before that, a couple of takeaways and then questions. When you look at doing this with other types of VPNs, it's, you know, if you're doing SSL, for example, you've got to set up a lot of servers, you've got to set up a lot of individual clients. So, you know, if you had 5 assembly lines in your plant and you wanted the defenders to be able to talk to each other because you wanted devices below them, you're going to have to set up 5 different VPN servers. Each one of the remote locations has got to have a client set up. So you have to set those up as a client, and you're going to have all those certificates. So you've got multiple VPN servers, you've got multiple VPN clients to try to configure that. In WireGuard, you create the tunnel across the VPN or across the defenders, and then you simply add either the whole network below the defender or individual devices below the defender. And it makes it very, very easy to allow that kind of control and traffic. Keep in mind, Ethan had his any rules in there. Otherwise, he would have had to go in and actually add rules to allow that ping to happen across the network. And I think the second thing that's important is we're going to do like we did with the VPN, the SSL VPN, and a subsequent package update for this will allow a wizard. So you'll walk up to the defender with a wizard and you'll say, okay, I want to participate in this WireGuard network. What network? I want to participate with this client, and this client. Go. And it should be about that easy. The key here really is, and the beautiful thing about it is, you identify each defender with its own key, right? And then you have each device. In case of Ethan's system, you've got PCs below, and he used a client on those PCs, and each one of those has a unique key as well. So it makes it's much easier to set up the kind of communication that makes sense on a plant floor. And also it's much faster and more secure. So it can be line to line. When we say site to site, that could be one line to one line within the same facility, right? Or it could be physically site to site.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Was there any other questions about WireGuard?
So this WireGuard is all over this product line, Pico, Mini, or everywhere? This WireGuard software, you said
Yes, yeah.
it is inbuilt, or it can communicate it with the Mini or Pico itself?
Yeah, it won't matter what the hardware. Yeah, it can communicate to anything that's got WireGuard on it. Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have syslog capabilities, and how long do you have for log retention in the system?
I'm sorry, we have syslog capabilities?
Log to a SIM.
Oh, yeah, you can send logs from the Defender over to a
How long
syslog.
in the box can you retain the logs without a SIM?
Ooh, Jeff, what's our default? I'm sorry, I don't know that.
So you can set up a rotation for it. We do actually include non-rotational media for storage of logs, but if you're going to store them for more than days or weeks and weeks, you're going to want to send them someplace. But there's a significant amount of capability for storage.
Good question. Thank you.
I just had a question, Ethan. Can you show asset management?
Yes, I can.
So he's not going to have a tremendous amount of things showing up because he doesn't have a tremendous amount of things. But the idea behind asset management is if you want to isolate your OT space from your enterprise space, for example, but you want to know what's on the OT space without letting a lot of heavy applications in to poke and prod at your OT network, you can enable asset detection, and it will go out and build a list of the PLCs, including the firmware revisions, the modules, the product codes, all of those things, for example, in a Rockwell PLC that you might want to know. Maybe you want to know that I'm version 24 firmware and it should have been version 32. So it'll go out and start finding devices, build a list. Keep in mind, this is a security appliance. We do things in line. This will, depending on how you configure it, actively go out and poke things, but we do it in a very safe and secure way. We've been doing it a long time. We've never had a problem. And it will build this list over time and fill it out in more detail over time because we do. Let me be honest. You can configure this to be a race car. Depending on the age of your controls network, that may or may not be the wisest choice you've ever made, depending on how the devices on your network are and how old they are. Some older devices, as those of us who were deploying Ethernet IP in 2006 might remember, some of them weren't very robust. Maybe have 8 entries in their ARP cache, so that's a problem. But it gives you the ability to do that. It will also let you baseline, so you can save your list of assets. So bring the equipment up on your plant, run it off, save the list of assets. And then once you've done that, it will start running comparisons against your saved baseline. And if things fall off the network, it will let you know them. If they're added to the network, you will see that as a list. All of this is available via the Cybersecurity console. So you can see all of this in the Cybersecurity console. It's also available via REST API. So if you have upstream seams that you want access to this information, you can get it all from the Defender without having to let those tools onto your controls networks.
Do you have example for the assets? What assets we can see on the OT network?
Yeah, so I don't really. I didn't have anything set for the asset.
When I get up next, I'll show you one.
Yeah, Jeff will have a slide and he'll be able to show you. You can see right now though, I ran it real quickly. You can see my one Linux VM. No information yet because it hasn't run long, but yeah, so it's quick when it sees stuff and then it'll slowly populate this table and Jeff will show you more on that.
It's kind of fun. I run it on the Dynics enterprise network just so people's endpoint protections scream at them. Because as soon as it starts probing their PC, their endpoint throws up and says, they get a little pop-up that says, hey, something's asking me questions about your PC. So I invariably get calls. Of course, I used to do that at one of the companies I worked with. We'd plug things onto the enterprise network just to see how long it took IT to find them. It's really interesting if you run it at home. I didn't know, for example, I did not know that TiVos are all Linux based. Did not know that. We use that for our home television network. I was also not happy to find out that of the 6 TiVos I have, 5 of them are all on different versions of Linux. That wasn't exciting either, but it's kind of neat when you run it at home, run it at the office. And we do literally turn it on just about everywhere we go just to see what we can see. Oh, I was also asked a moment ago, it's fun when you have people that know your product in the room because they lean over and say things like, oh, you didn't mention that you can select RFC compliant key pair values for the syslogging. Yes, we can use, you can use the raw standard syslogging, or you can choose RFC, blah, 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 key pair valued mapping. And I think the last thing I'll mention, and I think it's time for the break in a minute here, although if we have more questions, is the deep packet inspection engine. Allows deep packet inspection, and we're not going to show that today. We're happy to do. That's one of those things where we want a little more deep dive because we need more equipment to show up, make the demo actually, interesting. But for example, pick a Rockwell PLC. I can learn that traffic. I don't have to know all this. Now, okay, I will admit that I probably know SIP as well as most that know anything about SIP, but I don't want to go in and have to enter this, that, the next thing. So this tool, the ICS Defender, can learn the industrial traffic, generate all of the deep packet inspection rules dynamically, and then you can apply them on the fly. And you can, I had a question from a customer yesterday. Can I set this up so that in my V20 PLC, I can only see this array of tags? In the entire PLC, I can let them see that, only that array of tags. Yes. I can allow you to only see that array of tags and only read it, not write it. I can keep you from, that's not good. I can keep you from, the eye candy is over here. That's not, not the eye candy. You have, one of the examples I use for people a lot is if your PLC on the plant, because they don't want maintenance folks to have access to do some things that might be destructive to production. I can allow the maintenance guy to clear faults on my PLC, which makes a change, technically speaking. I can allow them to put the PLC from program mode to run mode. That technically is making a change. I can prevent them from taking the PLC from run to program. I can prevent them from setting the clock. I can prevent them from doing absolutely anything in that PLC down to the most minute function. Because we do inline packet inspection by protocol. There are no firmware, there's no definitions. So these other solutions who are saying, we can do this type of thing, but you need to subscribe to this definitions thing. That's because they don't understand the plant floor, and that chances are this stuff isn't connected out to some place to get regular definition updates. We have the precursor to the Defender running today on plant floors using deep packet inspection of Ethernet IP for 10 years, right? And we haven't done a virus definition because the protocol is the protocol is the protocol. And we understand the protocol. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions about this before we break? Like I said, if you want to know more, we're happy to set up another time to have a conversation, a deep dive on any features. There's a tremendous amount of things we haven't touched, but given the amount of time today, we're trying to hit the highlights on things. At the end of the day, when we talk a little bit more about roadmap, will be an opportunity for you to tell me why doesn't it do this? Hopefully I can say, oh, but it does. Right? If not, it goes on the list.